Hey everybody, welcome to Life is Beautiful. I'm Anthony. Today we are going to talk about some hops. If you've ever done any type of beer research, reading books, looking at recipes or articles or whatever, you are most likely to stumble across a term called noble hops. Today, I really want to dive in and talk about not only what hops make up the noble hop family, but I also want to talk about how they got that famed status. But I also want to talk about this new emerging sector of nearly noble hops. So at its most simplistic, the noble hop family actually is an umbrella term that covers 4 different hop varietals that all are old world Germanic legacy heritage type of hop varietals. They include Hallertau Mittelfrüh, Saaz, Tettnanger, and Spalter. All of these hops are some of the oldest hop varietals in the entire history of the world, and they were some of the first hops to ever be cultivated for actual utilization in beer. Interestingly, there's some evidence that suggests that all the noble hops actually originated from a very similar, if not the same, land race of hops, which were wild growing hops that spread throughout Eastern Central Europe, and they were all just broken down, cultivated in their specific locations, which gave them a little bit of a terroir, a little bit of a local characteristic. They were specifically bred to be aromatically pungent and incredibly flavorful on the tongue.
And over the next 1,000 years, this hop group maintained superiority around the world, constantly being renowned for its high quality flavor and aromatic capabilities, making them some of the most popular, most famous, and most utilized hops of all time.
But as time went on and that science of making bigger, better, more enjoyable hop flavors came about and became a common practice, the noble hop family kind of fell out of favor. However, there was a brilliant marketing idea in the 80s that they were going to take these old world hops, they were going to repackage them and redistribute them as the noble hop family. The idea was that this would bolster the consumer's opinion of these hops. It would change from, those are old, whatever, to, these are elegant. They have a history about them. They're noble. Great for brewers to incentivize in order to use them more. It would make customers want to drink them more. And more importantly, it'd be beneficial to all the different hop growers and distributors from these regions. And you might think just slapping a marketing term like noble hop onto it might seem a bit gimmicky. But there was a little bit of merit to it. Author Stan Aronymous wrote in his book For the Love of Hops, "The other side is not noble. It doesn't tell you anything. Noble goes to perception. Noble says something you're doing is more classical." And I would say that does seem to be the common perception amongst beer enthusiasts. Even one of the most vital beer resources of all time, the Oxford Companion to Beer, says about noble hops, a term that has an undeniable ring of antiquity and distinction. So if you take nothing else away from this video or from this term of noble hop, understand that it was a marketing term that was meant to inspire and reinvigorate the concept of old world hops, including all the beer styles that became famous off of them. There are no laws, there are no regulations, there are no anything set in stone that really solidify the term noble hop, except for the marketing practice and the public's reception to it and acceptance of. They only have as much nobility as we give them. Kind of like real nobility in a weird way. Something to think about. Now that actually kind of sums up the history, the origin, and what exactly are noble hops. And that's normally where I would end this story. But during my research, I actually came across several different articles that were indicating that there are other near noble hop varieties that are trying to squeeze their way into that broader marketing term. And there's a little bit of a debate whether or not that they should be included or not. These nearly noble hops include English Fuggles and East Kent Goldings, German Hirschbrucker, Slovenian Styrian Goldens, and depending on who you talk to, sometimes Willamette. Now you might be saying to yourself, why would we expand this definition of nobility? Why would we squeeze in some of these other hops into a category that's been well defined for several decades now? Well, the thing is, all of these hop varietals that I mentioned kind of fit into a similar situation that the noble hops saw in the 70s and 80s. And that's that they're old world enough that they aren't being adopted by the craft beer scene, but, unless they're brewing like a traditional classic interpretation, they're not necessarily modern, hip, or hype. And they have very similar characteristics. They still have that earthy, they still have that floral, and they still have that spicy characteristic to them, although in different proportionalities. They're all old world European hops that have kind of been forgotten. And if that's what was the criteria in order to create the noble hop, I don't see why these pseudo noble hops couldn't fit into that broader category as well. There is another argument that can go either way, and that's the fact that hops will grow anywhere hops can grow. The argument is that if you take a bunch of traditional noble hop strains and you start growing them somewhere else, they're still going to be very, very similar because it's the same varietal. Although they will take on their own terroir, like we mentioned earlier, making them just slightly different enough that they might not be able to fit into the same mold of nobility. And people have both argued that it is beneficial to the grander hop community that more of these noble hops can grow, thrive, raising them up to a solidified platform. But other people would say that it actually takes away from their importance. It diminishes their nobility because if it can be grown anywhere, it loses its terroir, which overall lessens the whole noble aspect of it. So there's an argument whether or not these expat hop varietals, these expat binds, are they noble? And, because it's not a solidified legal definition, the waters become very murky. But with all that being said, the current definition, as I mentioned earlier, is simply 4 different hop varieties that come from Old World Europe and share a similar genealogy and sensory profile. So if you're ever come across the term noble hop and you're wondering, what is that? Why are they separated from all the others? Know that that's what they are. They're just noble by marketing, and that there are potentially in the future going to be more noble hops. So I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. I know this isn't my typical hop video, but I still thought it was very interesting. So remember, there is a story in every bottle, and that life is beautiful. Cheers, friends.